Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Praveen Rangnath, Senior Product Marketing Manager at Sumo Logic, and I first want to thank you for joining today's webinar on gaining deep insight from your IIS logs. For those of you not familiar with Sumo Logic, we are the next generation machine data analytics company. Our cloud-based service delivers real-time interactive search, analytics, and visualization of all your machine data. Leading global enterprises such as Netflix, Progress Software, Scripps Networks, and Ubiquity Networks leverage the Sumo Logic service to instantly transform machine data into IT and business insights. In today's webinar, we will provide an in-depth look at the Sumo Logic application for IIS and show you how to gain valuable insight regarding requests, responses, and operations of your IIS infrastructure. Before we begin, some quick housekeeping items. We will be recording today's webinar and will send everyone a link to the archive when it is posted to the website. Also, we will have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Please ask your questions in the Q&A window of the WebEx. Lastly, if you have any technical difficulty, please send a chat to host and presenters in the chat window of WebEx. That being said, without any further ado, let me introduce today's presenter, Duke Ha. Duke is a solutions engineer at Sumo Logic and is currently tasked with building various applications for the Sumo Logic Machine Data Analytics platform, including those for Linux, Windows, IIS, and VMware. Prior to Sumo Logic, Duke was a senior solutions security engineer at ArcSight, responsible for building compliance and security solutions packages for ArcSight products. He received a PhD from the State University of New York at Buffalo in computer security in 2009. Duke, thank you for presenting.
Thank you, Praveen, for a nice introduction. Hello, everyone. Thanks for attending the webinar. My name is Duke Ha, and today I'm going to show you how you can leverage Sumo Logic service to gain deep insights from your IIS traffic, to monitor the performance and operation of the servers, as well as to troubleshoot errors. So here's the agenda of today's webinar. I will briefly go over some background on IIS and Sumo Logic service, and then move on to Sumo Logic web application to demo on these use cases, collecting visitor insights, monitoring server operations, and troubleshooting. So, as many of you have already know, IIS Server is a web server by Microsoft that runs on Windows platforms. It's constantly ranked among the top 3 web servers, and it supports natively Microsoft server-side scripting technologies like Classic ASP and ASP.NET. There are 2 types of IIS logs. First one is access logs. These kind of logs keep track of all the requests, the responses from the servers to those requests, and it's usually logged under World Wide Web Consortium format, and it's typically by default they are logged under local files under this path. It's usually system drive. Most of the time it's C drive /inetpub/logs/log files. Now, from this kind of access log, you can gain multiple insights. The first one is from the business standpoint. You can keep track of your visitor locations, your visitor access types, their platforms, where they're accessing from, which operating system they're using, which browser they are using. From the operation standpoint, this kind of access log can help you keep track of the traffic volume to your servers, see how your servers are holding up against the traffic, and then you can monitor various aspects. The second kind of logs under IIS is error logs. Now, as the name already suggested, this log keeps track of all the errors as well as diagnostic information. And again, by default, they are local files under /Windows/System32 log files and HTTP errors. Now, some of the application actually doesn't log to this file, and they would be logged to the Windows event channel. Now, for error logs, it helps from operation standpoint to troubleshoot errors and to monitor your servers. So how do you collect these IIS logs to Sumo Logic? Sumo Logic provides basically 2 modes of collecting data The first mode is the local ones. When you want to, move your data is local. Now, in this case, you would install some collectors in your environment, and this collector would, access your logs and then send them up to the cloud to Sumo Logic service. And this is the mode that, we use for most of the default IIS server configuration. The other mode is when your log is already on the cloud. Say, for example, it's in Amazon S3 bucket. In that case, you can deploy Sumo Logic collectors, which will connect to your S3 bucket, and then again just send it to Sumo Logic server. And the other option is when you already have something set up and you just want to send it. And in that case, you can send it to HTTP endpoint at Sumo Logic service. So let's talk about, at this point, I will switch to the demo and talk about, how you can use Sumo Logic service to do, deep analytic with your data. So I log into the Sumo Logic under my account. And as you can see from here, the first one, I'm looking at the search tab. And here I already have a search. And so I'm going to run it. And as you can see, that it returns a lot of IIS logs. Now, there's a lot of valuable information from here, but right now you can see that you basically have to extract these many fields from these logs. Now, you can do it either manually or we already provide parsers. And in that case, you can activate these parsers using the command parse using public/IIS. And as you can see, it will go ahead and then parse, very nicely some of the fields for you. And based on this field, you can do various analysis and, slice and dice the data and give you all the insight that you want. So going back to the search here, you can see that the first thing that I use here is what we call the metadata source category. And the nice thing about using source category here is you can analyze all the data from multiple servers, say your server platform or your server farm, without having to go and add all of your individual servers. So let's visit the first dashboard. Now, the first thing I want to know is my my visitors, where they are from, right? And switch to that. Oops. This is blocking. Let me open it again. So here I have a dashboard with 4 monitors. The left 2 modes show me the visits by countries. So let's zoom into that. So as you can see here, I have most of my audience are from the U.S. And then I have some, small cluster from Europe and then from Africa, and then from Asia. And of course, you can zoom in here. Now, this is over the last 15 minutes, right? And here's I have another monitor that slides and dices it over time, and this is per minute. So each bar here represents the distribution of all the countries per minute. And one thing that stands out from here is that most of my visitors are from the U.S. And then I have some others from Japan and then Indonesia and so on. And these 2 monitors on the right focus on the U.S. Locations, and it would break down to which states my visitors are from. And again, from here I can see it nicely. A lot of people are from Washington State, and then the other big one is from here, and then from Colorado, right? Yeah. So, and again, this one break it down to minute. And again, like you can see here, the majority are from Washington State. So what kind of insight does it give me? What's the application of this one? So one application is you can monitor and you can direct your online marketing strategy to focus on this audience. And the other option is, if you just, have a marketing campaign and you want to see, how effective that is, if it targets, certain audience and then you want to measure how effective it is, then you can tell from this one. So this one provides you real-time capability to measure such metrics, right? So, okay, so that's visitors. Now, what if I want to know, which platform my customers are using, like their OS and their browsers, right? So, in that case, I have another dashboard that does exactly that, right? So, if you look at the right modes monitor, the first one show me the distribution of all the OSs and the browser that my customer are using. So let's zoom into that. So here you can see that I have Windows a lot. The majority of the customers are using Windows platform, and on that you have, Internet Explorer, you have Firefox, and then you have Chrome, right? And then the other big chunk is Mac OS, and you have Linux, and you also have mobile platform like iPad, iPhone, and Android, right? And here, basically, I have the distribution of all the platforms. So the majority is PC, and then the next one is Mac and mobile, right? So this kind of insight and information can help you to make sure that your application renders correctly on these platforms. And the last thing that you want to do is you want to switch to or stop supporting a platform when 50% of your customers are still using that platform. So obviously, this kind of insight is very usable for you to make such decision. On the left-hand side here, I have another monitor that keeps track of all the media types requested over time, right? So here I just provide the distribution of all the generic content that I have. But in your case, sometimes you want to focus on certain media types that you are serving, So maybe you just want to focus on 10 or 21 that you are serving, right? So this kind of information can help you to see, whether you want to cache this media type more often, or you see, how fast they are serving your customers, right? And so this one, I want to look at the top requested documents, for example. And, from here I can tell, okay, these are requested the most, so depending on your application, you may want to cache this one more often, or you want to distribute it, basically, set it up so that they can serve your customers as fast as possible. So that's about the client platform. I have another dashboard that show me, different aspects depending on the app, the user, and the clients, right? So, for example, if you look at this column, I have the requests by app over time, and then, the top apps with most requests. So this is the case when you want to see, okay, among your apps, which one is receiving the most requests, how they are. And let's say if you just have a marketing campaign, you just launch an app, you see how how if they have any traction. This is exactly what you want to look into, right? So if you just say that you just launched an app and you want to compare how much traffic it gained, then you want to look into this kind of information. So from here, you can see that I have a lot of apps, and this one. Some of this one receive a lot more than others, and here I can turn it off and on, right? And you can see that I have like 2 pages of apps. If I just want to look into the top 10, then I have this monitor that just look into those top 10 apps. And again, this one can help you to gauge, the effectiveness of your marketing campaign. For example, when or if you want to, direct more resources into a certain app with most requests. In a similar vein, let's say you want to gauge, how active your users are. And here, so I have a monitor that, just show me the top requests by users. And you can see that, most of my users don't have a lot of requests except for these two, right? And so depending on your environment, can be something normal, or it can be something a little bit unusual, and you may want to look further. So the nice thing with top monitor is, it helps you to look into just top 10, but, sometimes you want to see, okay, if my top 10 is really big, how much or how many of my users are actually having that many requests. So one way to do that is looking at the percentile. And here I have a chart, basically, that shows me the percentile of request by users. And the nice things about this kind of chart is that, here I have different percentiles starting from 50% going up by every 5% up to here I have 95%, and then from here I put it like 98 and 100%. So one thing from here that stand out immediately is that, up to 98% of my user have only 16 requests, but then when it goes to 100, the number just jumped to like over 700, right? So the top 2% actually have a lot of requests. And so I know that, from here I know that the top two actually can be that much. And if I correlate with this chart, I know that, from here I still have, except for the top two, they only have, very, very few requests. So the top 2% here may just correspond to these two users. So that's how you can slice and dice the same kind of data in different aspects, and that can tell you a lot. This one show me the request by clients, and again, I have the one that show the top clients with most requests, and the other one show me the percentile. And again, from here, you can kind of tell the same thing. The top 2% have between like 29 and then over 2,000. Right? So when you correlate this chart, that I know that 2% actually correspond to, these users. So that's traffic insights and visitor insight, right? Now let's switch gear and talk about server operations. So essentially with server operations, what I want to see is, how much load my servers are receiving, and, how my server are holding up against, that amount of traffic. So again, you can look at multiple metrics. So let me close this one and then reopen the dashboard. Right. So here I have a dashboard that first show me, if you look at this monitor, the first one that I have is I want to see how many requests each of my servers are receiving, right? So in this case, one thing that stands out immediately is that, I'm not doing a good job at load balancing these servers, right? So like this server received a lot, like over 11,000 requests over the last 15 minutes. And compared to the rest, these are kind of similar, but then, some are just like completely dropped compared to others, right? Like much fewer, right? So here, definitely I want to revisit my configuration and, do load balancing these servers more adequately. So requests, the load by server is one metric. Another good metric to monitor the performance of your server is response time, right? It basically tells you how fast your client would, receive some response to when they make certain requests, right? So for that kind of information, again, I can build multiple charts and slice and dice it, in different aspects. So here I have a histogram of all the response time, all the requests, right? So what I can tell from here is that, okay, so in this histogram, each bucket represents the response time and then how many requests fall into this bucket. So say, for example, this bar here represents all the requests that with response time under 50 milliseconds. And I have, over here, I have 29 requests. Similarly, I have something, 27 requests whose response time is between 50 and 100 milliseconds. So, this nice looking chart tell me that, okay, the majority of my response times are, acceptable under 350 milliseconds, right? But it also have a very long tail, and some of the tail actually go up to like 66 seconds. So this kind of information can tell you, okay, your server farms, if there's certain websites or web pages that are taking longer than usual. And so, from the perspective monitoring the operations, this is what you want to see, and you want to look further. So that's about the histogram. Now, here I have a similar thing at percentile. Basically, I want to tell, among that tail, that long tail in the histogram, what percentages correspond with, respect to the whole response pool. Now here, 95% of my all the response time falls under 1,000, almost like 1,400 milliseconds. And then when it comes to 98%, the number jumps to 12,000. And especially the top 2% is very unusual. It's between 12,000 milliseconds and then 65,000 milliseconds, right? So it is the top 2% that I need to look further into. So let's say if I have to investigate, the first thing I would do is that I want to look into the top 10 slowest pages, right? And this is what I have exactly. And this one show me nicely, how much, what is the average response time that these UIs are taking. And it stands from, one thing that stands out from here is that, I have like this top 3 website or, web UI that is taking very long time. The rest are okay, 1 second, right? And, depending on your and your requirements, you may want to focus this one on certain apps, for example. And then, depending on, again, your situation, maybe this number is not acceptable, and then you may want to look further. So in my case, 1 second it's fine, and these are something that I need to look into, right? So that's about the top 2 slowest pages. But sometimes this kind of monitor doesn't show me everything. Sometimes a website is just slow because it has a lot of traffic, right? So it just takes time to load. And so now, another good metric then that I want to look into the response throughput. Basically, here I define the throughput as the amount of bytes sent over time. And so here I have monitor that that show me the top 10 pages that have the slowest throughput. And so from here, this is like sorted in reverted order. So I can see that, this one, I have, again, the top 3. The top 3, actually, the top one is very bad. It's less than, only less than one byte per millisecond, right? And the rest are okay. I mean, when you look into this one, only the first one is really bad. And config web login here, for example, if you compare it to the first monitor, the loading time is very bad, But then when you look at the throughput, it tells me that this is just heavy, right? So this page is very heavy, so it's just usual to take a long time to load it, right? So you can tell from here that when you slice and dice your data in multiple aspects, it give you a better picture into deciding what to do next. So that's for the response time and then the amount of requests. Let's switch into another aspect of monitoring server operations. Errors. so errors can come from, client errors, or it can come from the server errors. Client errors is, typically, again, it can be divided into multiple categories. So the first one that I want to look at is the errors, over time. And it can be grouped into different categories. It can be successful. In this case, there's no error. It can be, redirect. It can be client errors. And again, it can be server errors. So here I have a chart that, show me all these different categories over time. And so I have a lot of successes. That's good. But I also have some server errors here that I want to look into. And this, it fluctuates. This is normal, but if you have a spike, for example, this is where you want to drill down further. So let's say if I want to focus on client errors. So here I have a monitor that showed me, all the client errors. And, it's very dense because I have a lot of, requests. And I have a lot of errors for sure. And, some of the clients stand out. So, it can be something benign, but it can be, a sign that somebody is doing something malicious. So, I may want to drill down further and correlate it to the amount of requests. Obviously, if you have more requests, that you tend to have more errors. And so I don't have the monitor here, but, that's another thing that you can do, similar to the step that I just shown earlier, when you want to look at multiple aspects. So finally, I definitely want to look into the server errors. Now, server errors is usually when something happened to my servers. And, you can have, typically you have 500 error code, and then sometimes you have 503, right? And so the server error can comes from, multiple reasons. Say, for example, it can be the limit of your servers. It can also be because of some errors in your applications. So you definitely want to look into, these errors and investigate further. So here, this is where correlation comes into the picture. Now, in the log, not all the time you can tell, what error it is. Sometimes it's just very mysterious, code 500 error. You don't know exactly what caused this one. And so here, I correlate that with the IIS servers. And from here, I can tell that, okay, I have more information. So the same 500, it can actually correspond to, the reason is number. So this is a parsing errors. So I may want to visit the applications, that are causing this one. It can also be, forbidden. Now, this thing is usually when, there's some request that is not allowed from a security standpoint. So I may want to look further into this one. See if somebody is just causing this, accidentally, or actually trying to probe my servers and my application, right? And same thing for 503 here. I can tell that it's connection limit. So when you correlate these two things, it's much clearer, right? Just by then comparing looking at the server errors from here, right? I cannot tell what exactly caused this, except for the fact that I know that these servers are receiving or are having a lot more server errors than this one. But then if you recall the monitor on the amount of load, this one received a lot of requests. So it might be something completely normal. When you receive more requests, you're experiencing more errors. So so that's what I have for for server operations. And so let's go back to the slide. Let me switch. You have seen this dashboard before, so let's go back to the slide and summarize what I just talked about during the webinar. So we talk about how you can gain various deep insight from your IIS logs, and you can understand your visitors. You can help help monitoring your server operations by looking into IIS logs. And really, there's a lot of information, very valuable information in your IIS logs, right? And by using Sumo logic, you can see that you can correlate and centralize all of your data, say from your multiple servers, your server farms. You can correlate all of them, and then you can correlate access log with error logs, to do troubleshooting, and monitoring the performance of your servers. So with that, that's that I have for this webinar, and with that, I'm going to hand back to Praveen to see for any question.
Thank you so much, Duke. We do have a couple of questions that have come in. Here's one question, which is, does Sumo Logic offer similar functionality to monitor my web server farm?
Yes, definitely. So for this kind of content, you can use it to monitor, your single server, or when you have multiple servers. Like the way that I showed you before, that you can use the source category to correlate all the events from multiple servers. Now, if you have a different kind of web server like Apache, then we also have Apache application that provide you various insight exactly like this app.
Okay, great. And here's another one. What other applications does Sumo Logic offer?
So we provide different applications that help you monitor your system. We have IIS, we have Apache, we have Windows, and we have Linux, and more are coming. So just stay tuned.
Excellent. There's a question about the searches, and the question is, will you show the searches that these dashboards cover, and what are the searches that essentially are powering the dashboards?
Yes. So you can definitely look at the search that shown by this dashboard. So let's say if I go back to this one, and just look into this one, server by request. If I click on this one, it would take me back. I have to close this one here. It would take me back to the search. And you can tell from here that what I do is that I simply do a count by the server IP, count the number of requests by server IPs. Another search here looks a little bit more complicated, but actually it's not that. Is show the histogram of all the response time. So here let me zoom in this one. I don't know if I can zoom in here. Maybe it looks nice. But anyway, basically, I just use a trick that, first you build the buckets using this operator, which is, divide the response time by 50. So 50 here is the bucket size. You can change it. And then, you just count the number of requests by the bucket max here.
Okay, great. And for the attendee that asked that question, as well as everyone else, please be on the lookout for a future webinar, which will cover how to set up dashboards and tips and tricks of how to set up a dashboard quickly. Okay, we do have another question that's come in, which is, what information can you get through your service versus a web analytics package like Google Analytics? And is it that Sumo Logic can monitor any web application versus just websites?
Okay, so the question is what we can get through the service versus the web analytics package like the Google Analytics. Yeah, so you can see that a lot of the features that and a lot of the monitors that we build around this provide what others web analytics package provide you. Now the nice thing is here you can come up with searches for your specific environment that these packages don't take into account too, and simply because they are not aware of your environment, right? So from here you can start from these searches, this monitor, and then customize it. Say for example, if you want to drill down on specific app, for example, or sometimes you want to correlate with others, other information like so in this case, IIS, sometimes I want to correlate with my the CPU information. Now that doesn't come with the web analytics package, right? But it can comes from other other sources. And this is the power, when Sumo Logic offer you, is that you can correlate all of this together, right? And say, for example, in here I can monitor, okay, and if there's an issue with an app, I can look at the CPU and see if the application pool is behaving correctly, or if there might be some issues that are causing the bottleneck, for example.
Okay, and I think those are all the questions that have come in. Wanted to thank everyone again for their attendance on today's webinar. We hope you found it to be very informative. As another reminder, we will send out a link to the archive of the webinar. I can also send you a copy of the slides as well, if you wish. Thank you again for your time today. Again, as I mentioned, be on the lookout for future webinars, particularly covering how to set up dashboards as well as new and upcoming Sumo Logic applications. Thank you again, and please everyone have a great rest of the day.